Hello YouTube Frogs, you can see I'm in front of Sangonomiya Shrine. Welcome back to another complete guide. This time, we'll be covering our newest 5-star Hydro Catalyst, Kokomi. As usual, we'll be taking a look at potential 3, 4, 5-star weapon choices, breaking down her talents and ways to optimize her kit, explaining her constellations, artifact choices, team compositions, and showcasing her in the current abyss. Of the 4-star weapon choices, unfortunately for the Hakushin ring, I will only be talking about it, but not demonstrating it to preserve Kazari's mask. When we get to discussing weapon options, I will talk about it there. With regards to artifact choices, we will also be discussing the trade-offs between damage-oriented for Hydro and healing support-oriented Tenacity Maidens. Alright, let's get into the guide. Everything will be timestamped for your convenience, so feel free to skip around for what you need. But before we jump in, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, the world's first browser for gamers, Opera GX. Now, I know that sounds a little over the top. A browser for gamers? Hear me out though. This browser is actually super insane and very well integrated into daily gaming life. It has really amazing browser resources to combat lag and FPS problems while you're gaming. Take a look at GX Control, for example. This panel lets users limit the amount of CPU or RAM they're willing to let their browser use. So while you're playing games and listening to music and also have a bunch of tabs open, this browser will allow you to keep it all and maintain tip-top gaming composure. Not only that, but there's also a network limiter. This allows you to limit the network bandwidth, think download and upload speed, to provide optimized performance for your games and streams. Those of you who know how much RAM Google Chrome uses can definitely attest to this being a noticeable problem with lots of tabs. Opera GX also has an incredibly well-integrated accessibility sidebar. So whether you use Twitch, Discord, and or other social media sources, the sidebar provides some super fluid integrations at your fingertips. Get notifications when a streamer you follow goes live, check notifications from social media, and monitor Discord all right there. There's also even a GX player, where you can log into your favorite music players, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, whatever you use, directly from the sidebar in Opera GX. This player lets you keep your favorite streaming services all in one place, and whenever you start streaming video or audio from one of your browser tabs, this GX player automatically pauses and then automatically resumes once the tab is finished. Honestly, a clutch feature. You can download Opera GX for free using the link in the description box below and start using these amazing features and more right away. Thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back into it. Alright, here's my Kokomi. As a usual baseline investment for new character guides, she gets level 80 out of 80, Constellation 0, and level 6 talents across the board. For her artifact layout, I'll be showcasing 2 potential setups, demonstrate her damage output, and burst focus playstyle. I'll be running a 4 Heart of Depth set running HP, Hydro, and healing bonus main stats. To demonstrate her healing output and elemental skill support playstyle, I'll also be running a 4 Tenacity set running HP, and healing bonus main stats. Unfortunately, I do not have prepared Maiden's Beloved pieces for 2-piece or 4-piece demonstration, but I will mention the trade-offs when we talk about artifact options. Specific artifact details and stats when we look at weapon options. Alright, let's break down her talents so that we can discuss how we can actually utilize her kit. These 2 sections discussing her talents and her playstyle will likely be heavily information dense, but I promise you'll understand her much better afterwards. Let's begin with all 3 of her passives. The most notorious one, her air quotes, flawless strategy passive talent, wherein she sacrifices 100 crit rate that she never had to begin with and gains 25 healing bonus. This means that she starts at negative 95% crit. My Kokomi, you can see as negative 75.6% crit because my artifacts give me 19.4. Though it is difficult with a pure crit rate setup, you can have positive crit rate and do critical damage. Second, her Ascension 4 talent, probably the most confusing part about her. 15% of her healing bonus is incorporated into the max HP scaling off her burst. This can be confusing at first, like where does this actually increase her damage? Well, I did the math and the testing, and here's the breakdown. If you take a look at her burst multipliers, you'll see 3 lines of damage bonus from percent max HP. What this Ascension 4 talent does is increase that max HP multiplier like so. Instead of, for example, 6.8% max HP for a normal attack, it's 6.8 plus 50% times the healing bonus in percent of max HP. And because she has innate 25% healing bonus from her flawless strategy, her base multiplier is actually 6.8 plus 0.15, which is the 15%, times 25, which is that healing bonus, or 10.55% HP. So this plus 15% times the healing bonus is effective for all 3 lines of the damage bonus. 6.8 plus that amount, 9.5 plus that amount, and then 9.9 plus that amount. So this is why a 35.9% healing bonus mask gives the most mileage, because not only do you get an additional 5.4% max HP scaling to her burst, which is that 15% conversion, her raw healing bonus is also 35.9% more, which with her passive is now 60.9%, and can still receive more HP percent from the substats of that piece. Now, my personal question though, why doesn't the burst just add an extra line like down here or right below here for this healing bonus scaling and provide her for another passive? Who knows, might have just been a kit experiment or project that they were trying to do something more unique. So with all this explained, this is what her damage looks like during her burst without a healing bonus mask, which means 25% healing bonus, and her normal attacks have 10.55% HP scaling. And this is what her damage looks like with a healing bonus mask, which means 60.9% healing bonus, and her normal attacks have 15.95% HP scaling. Now, accounting for defense and resistances, the damage numbers match. Okay, and for her Ascension 1 talent, her elemental skill's Karage duration is refreshed when she casts Burst. This is super simple. This just means elemental skill into Burst and then auto into your rotation. This is not a reset of cooldown, okay? So this is a refresh of the duration, not a reset of cooldown. So you cannot do something like elemental skill, Burst, elemental skill, then auto, like you can for some other characters. Okay, onto her actual abilities. Normal attack is nothing special. The multiplier is reminiscent of Xlice, but slightly lower. The charge stamina is 50, as with all Catalyst users. Kokomi herself does not have any charge reduction built into her kit, so most of her attack string is just normal autos plus dashing. Her elemental skill, Karage's Oath, summons a jellyfish that deals damage and heals all on-field active characters within radius every 2 seconds. So for solo, this only heals your on-field character, not your 3 off-field party members. For co-op, however, this heals whoever's on the field, all 4 if playing 4 co-op within range of the jellyfish. Now, the base damage is attack scaling and incorporates HP scaling when her burst is active. The healing is strictly HP scaling and not increased by her burst. The elemental orb generation from the skill can vary between 1 orb per tick to 1 orb per 2 ticks, similar to Raiden Shogun's elemental skill as well. The skill has a 12-second duration with a 20-second cooldown and can be refreshed with her burst, so minimal uptime is 60%, but in practice can be nearly 100%. Finally, her burst, Nereid's Ascension, those sea nymphs from Greek mythology. This is where 80% of her practical damage output comes from, tied to the HP scaling during only active burst. The HP restored from normal and charge attacks occur every attack and are for all allied members, including off-field. As I mentioned previously, you frogs now know how the scaling works, including her healing bonus. This is what her burst looks like without Karage active to show for Heart of Depth healing. The 2000 HP healing procs are from Prototype Amber and not her burst. And most importantly, her burst allows her to water walk. Be careful though, this means water no longer saves you from fall damage. Her burst has a duration of 10 seconds with an 18-second cooldown, and all these effects leave when she switches out. So for the majority of her HP scaling to be active, she needs to be on field. With a 70 energy cost and semi-consistent orb generation from her skill, I would say 150% recharge is a decent threshold to maintain decent uptime with her burst. I personally currently only have about 125% running 4 Heart of Depth, so my rotations will need a bit more orbs for my party members to maintain uptime. Now, when it comes to playstyle, how would I recommend maximizing the trade server kit? I would say there are 2 major trajectories, both of which take advantage of the glue-like nature that Hydro characters have in this game, enabling powerful compositions like Freeze, Vaporize, and Electrocharge that support Cryo, Pyro, and Electro DPS. First, a support-focused build, less reliant on her burst, more focused on her elemental skill. You plop the skill, switch off to buff team members, and burst to heal when necessary or refresh the uptime of Karage's Oath and utilize downtime from other characters. She has access to Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers and consistent uptime of the 4-piece Tenacity buff for attack buff, while she heals the attack character and provides Hydro for reactions. In my opinion, this support setup works best for a freeze and or electrocharge oriented composition. Second, a damage-focused build relying on her burst uptime. This sacrifices her effective general healing by about 25% to grant her upwards of 35% or more damage output when running 4 Heart of Depth and a Hydro Goblet. In this particular setup, she is on the field significantly more during her burst. This can be utilized as a carrier for off-field support DPS and applies Hydro with her Karage and her autos often enough to support reverse Vaporize Xiangling composition. Freeze and Electrocharge are again solid options for this, and Beidou does in fact synergize with Kokomi's burst, so don't worry about that. I would say with these 2 build trajectories, her flexibility with compositions is very high, but because her kit is quite divided between healing and damage, being a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type character, she is more meant for utility in my opinion over helping the team output the most damage. So, we've covered mainly how her kit works. Let's dive into potential weapon options. Firstly, 3-star Thrilling Tales. If you don't want to invest in any other weapon, this weapon will perform admirably to gain the most out of Kokomi's kit in either build. HP percent for her main scaling, 48% attack buff for the ally you switch to when leaving the field. Only thing it's missing is some form of energy recharge assist. Next, 4-star Prototype Amber. The default option, I would say, providing HP percent, additional team healing at 12% over 6 seconds, and 12 energy over 6 seconds back to her at R1. At R5, this scales to 18% healing and 18 energy. If you're not looking for a team buff, this is a go-to. And the 5-star option, Everlasting Moonglow. Basically does what Prototype Amber does, but more damage. More HP percent here, increased healing bonus, similar energy refund off of the normal attacks, and those normal attacks now do a whopping 1% more max HP. Comes out to about 300 to 500 damage per auto, depending on how tanky your Kokomi is. Here's a damage comparison of Prototype Amber versus Everlasting Moonglow on my Kokomi running Heart of Depth 4-piece. Here are the artifacts and stats. I'll be running HP, Hydro, and Healing bonus main stats. You'll notice that I am not using my elemental skill here, and that's on purpose so we can focus on our normal attack string, healing strictly from the burst and how much energy we end up with. And yes, I know, not using the elemental skill means I'm not getting the 4-piece Heart of Death bonus here, but that's okay because we're comparing different weapons on the same artifact set, so as long as I don't use the elemental skill on both sides, it'll be fine. So, with both of these weapons at R180, we see a comparable increase of about 15% for the Moonglow over Prototype Amber. The healing from her autos increased to 860 over 790, which matches the 10% healing bonus, increased HP, and taking into account slightly diminishing returns for a 9% overall healing increase. Sterling Tails at level 80, which I don't have here, I only have at level 50 here, provides 32.1% HP, which is 5.6% under the prototype, which is 37.7%, so the damage difference between these two weapons is very small. The Moonglow provides an additional 10% healing bonus, which is an additional 1.5% max HP conversion on top of the 1% from its own passive, so by itself it grants 2.5% additional max HP conversion. So the 15% damage increase for the Moonglow over Prototype Amber, over 10% is from the additional max HP conversion. Alright, so other niche weapon choices I'll go over here. Elemental Mastery options for full Elemental Mastery Kokomi. Sacrificial Fragments grants the highest base Elemental Mastery for the current Catalyst at 201 at level 80, is the go-to choice for an Elemental Mastery transfer Sucrose, so this would apply the same exact way if you're running a full EM Kokomi for Electrocharge procs. Mappa Mare is the same type, but half of the Elemental Mastery with higher base attack. If you were to craft though, I would craft the Prototype Amber instead. Energy recharge options. So we have Favonius Codex and Wine and Song. So I would stray away from Favonius and both Wine and Song unless you're super desperate for a recharge stat stick. Favonius provides little benefit here, unfortunately, since she sacrifices all her crits so she can't proc the passive. And then a special mention for the weapon that I have not crafted, the Hakushin Ring. And this is because I have chosen to preserve the Mask of Memories. So this weapon is an option for those looking to make Kokomi an Electro or Hydro buffer for Electrocharge compositions. At R1, if she wields it, the buff is 10% because she'll be proccing a Hydro-Electro reaction, which is Electrocharge, for 6 seconds. Buffs here can also stack with Cosmo compositions if you so wish. It doesn't grant HP percent, but assists with her energy recharge for carrier build options, and also works just fine for jellyfish bot situations. And then there's Witzith. It's an RNG-based weapon if you want to try this out, mostly for the elemental damage bonus buff or the elemental mastery one for EM Kokomi. Now, the other attack and crit damage weapons fall flat for how her kit works, but if you want to try crit Kokomi, Lost Prayer and Solar Pearl. Good luck. Okay, now that we've taken a look at weapon choices and playstyle, we can discuss her artifact choices, beginning with 4-piece options. For a damage-oriented Kokomi, focusing on her burst rotations, 4-piece Heart of Depth is a recommended set of choice here. If running this layout, I'd recommend HP Timepiece, Hydro Goblet, and a Healing Bonus Mask. For a Hydro Goblet and a Healing Bonus Mask, I would focus on HP percent and recharge percent substats. If you're running this build, I'd expect around a 30 to 35,000 HP Kokomi this way. For a support-oriented Kokomi, 4-piece Tenacity is my preferred recommendation, granting additional 20% HP along with 20% attack whenever her elemental skill is active on the field. 4-piece Maidens is also an alternative, but in my opinion, her active healing is already more than enough, so the incoming healing bonus from the 4-piece is a little wasted. Also, that 20% incoming healing bonus does not scale with her Ascension 4 talent. Healing bonus and incoming healing bonus are different, and you can see that in the stat page. 2-piece Maidens, though, is perfectly fine. If you're running either of the 4-piece support options, I'd recommend an HP Timepiece and Goblet for maximum bulkiness and heal scaling, as well as a Healing Bonus Mask. And finally, for completion's sake, 4 Blizzard set if you want to try crit freeze Kokomi memes. Before we head into 2-piece mixtures, let's take a look at the difference between a 4 tenacity and 4 heart of death build. I would love to showcase a 2 maidens 2 tenacity here, but unfortunately I have 0 usable maidens pieces for her. Just note that 2-piece maidens and 2-piece tenacities is her strongest mixture combo aside from dedicated 4-piece heart of depth or 4-piece tenacity for buffing. So with this build, let me first change up my artifacts really quick. Alright, there we go. Instead of a Hydro Goblet, I'm going to opt for an HP % Goblet since we're aiming to maximize her supportive capabilities. First, let's compare strictly Jellyfish healing between 4-piece Tenacity and 4-piece Heart of Death build. Here are the artifacts and stats for Tenacity. I'll be running HP healing bonus main stats. So, a dedicated 40k Tenacity build healed about 18% more than a 33k Heart of Death damage oriented build. For even more heals, dropping to 2-piece Tenacity and adding 2-piece Maidens would increase healing bonus from 60.9% to 75.9%. Now let's take that dedicated 40k HP Tenacity build during burst and compare the damage loss versus Heart of Depth. Both of these are R180 prototype Amber damage. And this time, for Heart of Death, I'll use her elemental skill since we're comparing damage from different artifact sets. So we can see the difference is quite significant. Dedicated damage Heart of Death build is outputting over 40% over the dedicated support Tenacity build. This exchanges around 20% healing effectiveness. 2-piece Tenacity and 2-piece Maidens would fall in between these, providing greater healing than for Heart of Death, but providing more damage than for Tenacity. Now, on to 2-piece mixtures, here's what we have. So, 2-piece Maidens for the 15% healing bonus, both for the healing and the Ascension 4 conversion to burst auto damage, Tenacity for the 20% HP, Heart of Depth for the 15% Hydro, Emblem for the 20% recharge. All of those 2-piece sets are interchangeable for building. As for the main stats, the most mileage comes from an HP timepiece and a healing bonus mask. For the goblet, it depends on playstyle. HP for support and heals, Hydro for burst autos. An HP mask is also doable instead of a healing bonus mask if you don't have a worthy healing bonus mask to use. Doesn't that sound strange to recommend? I just said a worthy healing bonus mask. Like what? Anyways, yeah, for Kokomi, healing bonus grants her stronger burst autos as well as more healing effectiveness from the HP mask, so it is her best universal mask choice. That hopefully covers all the nuanced details for artifacts. Alright, finally touching upon Constellations. You guys may have noticed that Constellations is during a later portion of the video instead of right after Talents, where I normally put it. I did this because when talking about Talents, I found it naturally flows into playstyle and then weapon choices and then artifacts. Constellations I can kind of make standalone, and for 5-star characters, they are locked behind a hefty paywall or a fat amount of luck, so I think it's okay to put the section here before we jump into compositions and demonstrator. Okay, let's get into it. So here's how I categorize for Constellations, including C3 and C5, which are the standard +3 levels to a talent. C1 is a damage increase. C2 is a healing increase. C3 is a damage increase, burst +3 levels. C4 is energy refund. C5 is a healing increase for skill +3 levels. And C6 is a damage increase. You can see that they're kind of evenly distributed amongst her split kit, yeah? 1, 3, and 6 improve her damage output. 2 and 5 improve her healing output, and 4 is to target a bit better energy refund for burst rotation. So onto the finer details. Constellation 1 adds an extra proc of damage. Constellation 1 adds an extra proc of damage to her normal auto string during burst, dealing 30% of her max HP. Does not count as normal attack damage. Basically, what that last part means is the 4-piece Heart of Depth buff, for example, does not increase its damage, but the Hydro damage does, like the 2-piece part. For 35k HP Kokomis, expect a base of 10,000 damage from this, increased by whatever Hydro damage you have and then take into account enemy resists. On average though, C1 calculates to be at least a 50% increase during her burst, if completing her entire auto sequence. This is with 4 Heart of Depth. This can reach 75% if not running 4 Heart of Depth because her normal attacks aren't as buffed as during it, right? And Constellation 1 is comparatively much stronger in this case. C2 improves her healing output for allies below 50% HP. With that 35k HP baseline, this is a flat 1600 HP for her Jellyfish, 225 HP about for her normal charge attacks. Percentage-wise, her Jellyfish typically would heal about 5k in this scenario, so it's a 30% increase there, and her normal charge attacks would heal about 800 HP, so 225 is about another 30%. So both would be about a 30% healing increase. So for Constellation 3, this is Nereid's Ascension plus 3 levels. Each burst level is about 67% damage and healing increase, so plus 20% from this. Constellation 4, this is a slight attack speed increase and a bit of an energy refund while normal attacking during her burst. Usually, her burst would allow for 14 normal attacks, just spam left clicking. With C4, I'd expect her to get 15 normal attacks, maybe a 16th, and this would refund 12 to 13 flat energy. So combined with Moonglow, which is 0.6 during the same time frame, and if you're C4 Kokomi, I definitely expect at least an R1 Moonglow here, she get around 22 flat energy back combining the two. Along with her Jellyfish active and granting orbs during that duration, this basically guarantees her burst uptime. Constellation 5, plus 3 levels to Karage's Oath, which is her Jellyfish. Its healing and damage output gains 6 to 7% the same way the burst does, which means it's 20% more effective with this constellation. Constellation 6, basically 40% hydro damage during her burst. Yeah, it says heal or would heal any party member with 80% more HP, but that's basically all the time, especially with her Jellyfish active during that period. So this 40% hydro damage bonus improves her C1 also, so it's a nice boost to damage. But if we calculate it out for the actual damage increase, we need to include her Ascension stat, which is hydro damage, and likely if you're C6, you're running a Hydro Goblet for more damage-based Kokomi, which means a base of 75% hydro damage already. So this constellation is already diminished to a only 20% damage increase. It's down to 15% if you're running 4 Heart of Death on top of that. So with all this in mind, we're looking at about a plus 100% DPS increase with Constellation 1, 3, and 6 for damage, plus 50% healing from C2 and 5, and nearly a guaranteed burst uptime from Constellation 4. Okay, let's discuss team compositions. So the flexibility of Kokomi is extremely high. However, she's not necessarily the strongest choice. In my opinion, the main benefit of having her on a team is to utilize her consistent hydro application and have healing in one slot. Her burst-oriented DPS requiring her to be on field for a significant period of time, I would consider extra. I know, this sounds counterintuitive because so much of her kit revolves around trying to balance DPS and healing, and you've nailed it. Her kit is counterintuitive, trying to balance healing, on-field DPS, self-sufficient energy, but also completely negating her crit. But that's okay, because her kit still maintains high flexibility with compositions without being the strongest choice for them. And she's cute. So if planning to run her as a bus driver role, running 4 Heart of Death set and utilizing her on-field time as a catalyst for additional DPS, then virtually every single sub-DPS option is open. Beidou reacts well. Fischl is great especially at C6. Xingqiu is excellent and they both feed each other energy as double hydro. Xiangling is able to reverse vaporize with her. However, in these situations, the DPS is likely going to come from the off-field supports, and hers is not insignificant, but it doesn't shine. And when I say bus driver role, I hope that makes sense to you guys. So, for a support role relying mostly on her Jellyfish uptime, on top of the previous choices which work perfectly fine, freeze comps open up. All cryo DPS choices happen to work here. Ayaka, Ganyu, along with Rosaria for both Ganyu and Ayaka. Even Changyun, but he's better on reverse melt. And even rotational ones like Kaya. In both of those build paths, she acts like glue that holds reactive teams together. So, specific compositions include Bus Driver Double Hydro with Xingqiu, plus any Electro sub DPS, plus typically a Nemo crowd control. Bus Driver Double Electro like Beidou and Fischl, plus a Nemo crowd control. A weaker version of the national team with Xiangling and Bennett in comparison to the Xingqiu version. Freeze Ayaka, or Freeze Ganyu. Or both Ayaka and Ganyu on the same team with Kokomi and Kazuha. This composition is actually her strongest one, wherein she completes the survivability of this composition that Mona could only introduce another iframe into. However, the composition with Kokomi here does lose the Mona Omen buff, and Mona is also able to freely use the Favonius Codex to battery the team. Usually, energy isn't a problem here though, so you generally be trading survivability for Omen damage amplification. In general though, I would try to aim for one of these two build paths, Bus Driver Heart of Depth set or Tenacity / Maiden Support set to optimize your kit. Okay, so let's take some teams for a spin. We'll drop by Abyss 12 and showcase some Bus Driver and support compositions. Cue the music, Mr. Cope. And with the showcase complete, that about wraps up the core of this guide. With consistent Hydra application, healing, and a not insignificant amount of damage, Kokomi's main utility is being a highly flexible survivability character fit into many potential team compositions as either a bus driver or a jellyfish support. Even though her kit has some contradictory elements to it, she can still make ends meet and be the glue that holds reactive comps together. If this guide helped you understand Kokomi a little better, consider liking the video and subscribing to the YouTube channel for more similar content. It's free and I'd really appreciate it. I also stream nearly every day at twitch.tv/Xlice, so if you happen to watch Twitch, consider dropping a follow. Thanks for watching, and I wish that everyone's still trying to pull Kokomi the best of luck. See you on the next one. Take care.